You do? Yeah, ready when you are.
Well, an unbelievable introduction to an unbelievable guest. Ben, a massive warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining our Custodian client webinar. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Alex, and hello, custodians.
Amazing. Ben, look, we've got some unbelievable footage of you, and many of our clients would have just seen it. We've got so much to unpack here, and honestly, so little time. I feel like you and I could genuinely chat for hours. So we've got to keep ourselves on track, us Virgos. We really do. But Ben, to set the scene for us, you lost your eyesight in your late 30s. What were you doing up until this point? Give us a bit of an insight there.
Excellent, Alex, and I hope you enjoyed that epic footage. I grew up in the Blue Mountains, the beautiful Blue Mountains west of Sydney, and started riding motorcycles when I was 6 years old. And when I was about halfway through year 10, I was riding a motorbike at night time without a headlight, of course, down a fire trail. And I went under a canopy of trees and it blocked out the moonlight, and I couldn't see where I was going. And I ran off the fire trail and I hit a tree, had a broken nose. And the next day I went home and I saw my mum, and she said, because I had a headache, and she said, let's go to the doctors. So after I got referred to Sydney Eye Hospital, and after doing a series of tests, I was diagnosed with an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa. And the specialist at the time told me that I was going to go blind. It could happen next week, next month, or much later in life. They couldn't tell me.
Right.
And I just passed the entrance exam to join the Australian Navy because I wanted to become a marine engineer.
Oh.
And so my hopes and dreams were completely dashed. And I really struggled with that news for about 2 weeks. And then I basically went into denial because my eyesight was still perfect. And I got a driver's license and a motorcycle riding license. And I did a variety of jobs, Alex, everything from driving trucks and, working in the meat and small goods industry. I've worked as a brickies labourer. I've worked in finance, compliance and planning consultants. And I've also worked for 12 years at local government as a community and cultural development officer.
Oh, wow.
I studied, went to business college, business administration, and worked for state government. And I specialised in disability access issues. At the same time, Alex, while I had a working career, my eyesight didn't slow me down there. But I also started para rowing in Australia. I've set up a number of charities, did a lot of volunteer work. In fact, I look back on it, Alex, I just don't know how I fit it all in. Set up Sailability, had a lot to do with the 2000 Paralympic Games. I wrote the swimming manual. At the same time, I was racing motorcycles.
Right. And leading on to this is when you were starting to lose your eyesight?
So I started to, the first symptoms was night blindness. So I was fine if I had headlights on or there were street lights or what have you, or the moon's light was perfectly fine. But when there was no light around, so the first symptoms were night blindness, and I started suffering from that from about 23, 24. At this point, I was still riding and driving. And then when I turned 25, I had a couple of close calls on my motorcycle. My eyesight then, instead of 180 degrees, had shrunk to about 140 degrees of field of vision.
Okay.
Perfect acuities, but about 140. And I remember one night I went out and I sat in my car and I held onto the steering wheel, looking straight ahead, and I can see about the same as the windscreen. I couldn't see through the side windows. And Alex,
peripheral vision.
yeah, and it just shrunk in, gradually shrank in. But I had a couple of really vivid dreams where I was driving my car and I saw a beach ball bouncing across the road. And I spotted the beach ball out of my peripheral vision, bounced across the road, and I watched the beach ball. And as I looked ahead, there was a small child on the road, and I ran over them. And I had this dream 2 nights in a row.
Wow.
And the second time I said, that's it. And I tore up my license. And that's when my world turned upside down, Alex.
So Ben, you've done all of these things that you've just mentioned. You're living a very colourful life, if you will, a very busy life, wondering how you fit it all in. And then you get to about 37 and you find yourself completely blind. Is that about right?
So I tore up my license when I was 25.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but still had excellent vision. But it did start to become more of a challenge in crowded areas at night time. I could see, I had 20/20 vision straight ahead, but then I'd turn around and walk straight into a pole because I had no peripheral vision. It was like looking through binoculars, really.
Yeah.
So from 25, Alex, to 27, that was the darkest point in my life. I really struggled. I was forced to come to terms with my diagnosis, where up until 25, I was living in denial, complete denial.
Yeah.
And then from 25 to 27, I became increasingly withdrawn from society. I found it too challenging. I became angry, frustrated, angry. That led to depression. And I went on a downhill slide, Alex, until I was about 27. And that's when, it was the lowest point in my life. And, but then I made a decision. I had to sort of come to terms with all of this. So from when I was 37, that's right, the left eye, one night I was working on the computer trying to finish a newsletter. Yes. My eyes were a bit sore. I rubbed my eyes and my left eye just went blurry, and I thought it's time to go to bed, and I went to bed, and I woke up the next day, couldn't see out of my left eye. And then when I was 35, that happened. 37, again, I could see all right. I went to bed one night, and I woke up in the morning, and I heard the birds chirping. So I leaned over and flung open the curtains, and I went, oh, it's still dark.
Wow.
So I'll go and lay down, and I laid back down again, and I heard the birds chirping, and I went, hang on a minute. And I went back over to the curtains, and I opened the curtains up, and I put my face up to the window, and I could feel the sun shining on my face, but I couldn't see anymore.
Wow. So you had quite a long, build up or, denial phase, and also maybe even partly trying to break through to acceptance phase, up to actually becoming completely blind. Then you become blind completely. It must be just a crazy feeling to feel the sun on your face without being able to see it. Was there a moment of realization, or was there more of a build up to a realization post blindness or becoming blind, where you decided, I've got to dig deep now. I've got to find a strength that I don't know I've got. I don't know if I've got it. And I've got to actually turn this unthinkable event into a remarkable life. What was the moment, or was there a process? Run us through that. Yeah,
it was. It was like a light switch moment. And I'll get to that. I'll get to that point in a moment, but let me give you a bit of background on the build-up, right? So as you can understand, I gave up my license, right? And once I gave up my riding license and driver's license, I'd lost my job because I couldn't drive anymore. So part of my job was driving. And so I lost my job. I wasn't bringing any money home. I was becoming increasingly frustrated, and I really didn't want to have to face this pending blindness thing. You know, it was the bitter pill I didn't want to swallow, but I had to.
Yeah.
And of course, I wasn't coping well at all. Right, typical male. You know, don't talk about stuff. Men don't cry. All this crap. And so my partner tried to talk to me about it, and all I do was get angry. So I would go off to the pub and, you know, end up getting myself into a fight, and, you know, and I just wasn't coping at all. I lost my relationship, and then I just went on a downhill slide into the abyss.
Yeah.
I experienced thoughts of suicidal tendencies. I contemplated all of that, and I call this this was the lowest ebb in my life. And I was contemplating suicide, and I thought, no, my family loved me too much.
Yes.
My mum loves me too much. And I thought, no, I can't do that. That's a coward's way out. And so at the lowest point, it was like a light switch. And I thought, you know, why am I so angry? Why am I out of control? And I was just completely out of control. I had no future, no destiny. I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. My future prospects were bleak, and I thought my career prospects were threading beads and weaving cane baskets. And so it was the light switch moment, and I thought, Ben, why are you so angry with the world? Why? You can't live like this anymore. And then I sat back and I thought about it. I thought, you know what? Why? The reason why I feel like this is because I don't have a sense of place in the world, or a sense of community. I don't have a sense of purpose, right? I was rudderless. I had no direction, and I had no hopes and no future. And I thought, why? And I thought, you know, it's because I thought that blind people, you know, I didn't know any blind people before. I didn't know that blind people can do things. I thought, so I made a decision. I thought, you know what? The reason why I feel this way is because I don't have a sense of place in the world. I thought, well, I can't change the world, but I can make a positive difference. I made a choice, a decision, and rather than letting my emotions and anger and frustration control me, I accepted responsibility for myself. I accepted my decision that I was going to go blind, and I thought, right, now it's time for me to gain control of my life and start to learn. So I call this a period of reflection.
Yeah.
And Alex, I studied philosophy. I started reading law, human rights. I started reading, I studied theology. And once I put the philosophy, my legal learnings and theology, that then gave me direction and a sense of purpose, and my life has been extraordinary ever since.
You're reflecting on what you're talking about. You know, you're talking about hitting ground zero, you know, hitting rock bottom, and deciding to just go and discover philosophy. You know, like what? You know, yeah. I mean, you're not really an average human. You know, you're actually extremely unique. I mean, you probably get told that, but you know, you're talking about even before you're blind, you've made this decision with some kind of acceptance. So just amazing. And I guess from there, at some point, you decide, I love motorbikes. Maybe this is just before you were completely blind, but, you know, I've got no eyesight. So, you know, I'm going to become the fastest blind man to ever ride a motorcycle, you know, at 266 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
How many people tried to talk you out of this? Really?
Not that many, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, well, let me go back one step. So, you know, Alex, we all have the power to control our destiny and our future.
Absolutely.
It's up to ourselves. And so subsequently, I thought that when I was going to go blind, one door closed, but I had the courage to go up to another door and open it.
Yes.
And the hardest step was to actually walk through that door, taking the first step of my blind life journey. Now, let's go back to how the motorbike thing started, right?
Yes,
so
please do.
Subsequently, I was in the Australian rowing team for 10 years, and I happened to win 3 world rowing championships in para rowing. And I travelled the world. And after I retired from that at 37, I got the phone call from the boys at Blind Cricket. So I was in the Australian Blind Cricket team. So, Alex, here I am, 42 years old, sitting on the island of Barbados after I was in the Australian Blind Cricket team. We toured the West Indies.
Yeah.
And by the way, I played in Pakistan, India, World Cups, 3 Ashes series. I played cricket in South Africa. So here I am at the end of the cricket series, and I bought myself a bottle of rum and guava juice, Alex, and I walked down to the beach to contemplate my future.
Yes.
Right? And I sat under this coconut palm, and I had a rum and guava juice, and I went, Ben, the body's getting old, and I'm sore, and I don't have the speed and agility, and I can't recover as quickly as I used to. So I decided that I was going to retire from blind cricket gracefully.
I see.
That I had this emptiness because, you see, I'm a goal-driven person, Alex. And so I contemplated, well, what am I going to do next? And I thought, I've done the rowing thing, I've done the sailing thing, and I've done this, I've done that, but I need a sporting goal. So, and I thought, you know what, Ben? What was my childhood dream? And my childhood dream from the age of 6 years old was to race motorcycles at the highest level. And I thought to myself, Ben, you idiot, you can't do that. You're blind. And after a couple of more rum and guava juices, I came to the conclusion that I knew how to ride a bike. My problem was I didn't know how to, I had to come up with a solution, how to navigate a motorcycle and where I was going to do it. So when I got home from the West Indies, first thing I did was I Googled blind land speed record, and bingo. That's when I started on my journey, and I did my first land speed record test. Now, when I wanted to go for the Guinness World Record for the fastest speed for a motorcycle ridden blindfolded, Alex, you don't have to be blind to do this. You can have a go if you want, Alex. You just have to be blindfolded. Or anyone can go and have a go at this.
Any custodian, there you go, custodians. If you're thinking about it, we found you a new mentor in Ben.
Yeah. And so I spoke to my mum about it. And my mum said, okay, how are you going to do this? And once I sat down with my mum and I explained everything to her, the radio and the method and where we're going to do it, and had a long conversation with her, my mum said, okay. And then I said to Mum, I said, hey, Mum, can we go down the bike shop? I want to go down and have a look at some motorbikes because I hadn't ridden a bike for 20 years. And so my mum drove me down the bike shop, and I Suzuki GSX 1300 Katana, Hayabusa. And I'm looking at this bike and scratching my head, and I talked to Mum about my land speed record attempt, and it was going to cost me a lot of money, and I didn't have the money. So would you believe it, Alex? My mum lent me the money to buy my motorcycle when I'm totally blind. She
just unwaveringly believed in you as you believed in yourself.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
It's unreal.
And there were many, let's say, barriers and hurdles we had to overcome. So I'm the first blind guy in the world to have an international competition racing license. I'm the first blind person in Australia to have a Motorcycling Australia competition racing license. And Alex, I actually compete each year at Speed Week, which is held at Lake Gardner in South Australia, which is coming up at the end of March, goes for 5 days. And I compete in open class competition in the 1000cc modified production class, Alex. And last year, a couple of years ago when I competed last, I'm racing against the oval guys here, right? Out of the 42 competitors, Alex, I was 8th fastest outright.
Wow.
So would you believe a blind guy races motorcycles?
Well, now I do. Thanks to you. You've made me believe.
It's, this is about controlling your destiny, right?
Of course.
Yep. And you need We'll go into that. But so there you go. Look, there are some doubters.
Of
I
course,
guess
of course.
the average camper sort of says when they first hear it, that first they say, "Oh, that's impossible. How can a blind guy ride a motorcycle?" So quite easily, actually.
Yeah.
And once I explain how, then you get people to say, "You're mad. You're crazy. What are you? You're a thrill seeker. What are you trying to do? Kill yourself?"
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the last thing. What I'm doing is I've empowered myself to achieve my childhood dream,
That's
and
right.
I'm having the most fun, and I'm just blessed and so grateful that so many people have supported me on my journey.
Yeah.
And to race motorcycles is just the greatest gift I could ever have.
You're a legend. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, but you actually engaged a mentor, like to really kick you into the second gear. There you go. A bit of a motorcycle pun. See, I've ridden a few dirt bikes in my life. But to really kick you into second gear, you engaged a mentor.
Yes. So I've always surrounded myself with mentors.
Yes.
I actually I was a young guy with a lot of spirit, right?
Yep.
A lot of energy, and I had no direction. And so, and there were certain people that came within my circle of life, and these were just incredible people. And I actually asked them, "Will you be my mentor?" And you know, when there were times I had to make really difficult decisions, I would consult with these people. And you know, these mentors, Mike Newman is one of them, an Englishman who just got awarded the MBE by King Charles III on the 14th of January for his contributions to blind sport. But Mike used to be the business development manager for Barclays Bank of London. And when Mike was about my age, 40 odd two, he had enough of the finance industry and the machinations of working in London. And so he decided to chuck it in and start off doing land speed records. And Mike's blind, and Mike holds 8 or 9 land speed records. Wow. Anyway, so when I got home from Barbados and I Googled blind land speed record, Mike Newman from England comes up. So I reached out to Mike Newman, sent him an email, had a couple of conversations, and I asked Mike, would he be my mentor? He did. And then he told me all the secrets and gave me all the information I needed to start on my journey. And you know what? He was the first guy to get the motorcycle land speed record about 35 years ago.
Oh, wow. And he's become your mentor to help you beat his goal. That's an amazing team member in your team.
We're competitors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you know, I think if you're genuine, and you have the right attitude, there are people out there who will provide you with knowledge, guidance, and wisdom.
And so on that, Ben, you talk about having a team. Obviously, your mentors are probably key parts of your team, but I mean, tell us more about the importance of a team from your perspective and how it's helped you, I don't know, get where you are today, you know, living this remarkable life.
My dear old dad used to say to me, "Son, I'm an expert at nothing, but I know the right people who are." And I've always kept that on board. And I don't consider myself to be an expert at anything. But what is important is that you surround yourself with I surround myself, especially, let me put it in the context. So when I wanted to do the motorcycle land speed record, I knew that I needed to have support of other people. I couldn't do this by myself.
Yes.
And so I went on a mission, and I talked to a whole lot of people, and I wrote lots of letters, and I went to Motorcycling New South Wales, I went to Motorcycle and all these other, and I needed to find someone to come on board as a technical advisor and as a navigator. And a whole lot of names were mentioned. Australian legendary motorcycle racers, you know, Casey Stoner and Mick Doohan, and someone said, you know, Troy Corser and Troy Bayliss, all these legends, all busy. But then someone said Kevin McGee. And I went, "McGee?" I said, "Is he still riding bikes?" And And so I got an introduction to Kevin McGee. And I sent Kevin an email. And Kevin McGee, former MotoGP racer, Australian legendary motorcycle rider, and Fox Sport commentator, Kevin just got back from Horsham in Victoria, where he buried his mum. And his mother had volunteered for 40 years for the guide dogs in Victoria.
Yes.
And Kevin was one of 7 kids. His dad died at a very young age. They grew up in a tin shack with a dirt floor, and they had a potbelly stove. And his mum used to have to, the boys used to cut the firewood, and they used to get the fire, and that's how they used to cook. That's how they used to heat up the water to have a bath. So Kevin came from a very humble background, and he was very close to his mother. And Kevin remembered he used to go around, remember the old fiberglass black, or the guide dogs that people used to leave at the RSL club or somewhere you can put the money in their head to make a donation?
Yeah.
Kevin used to go around with his little boy, and he used to carry those out to the mum's car, and she'd come home and put all this money on the table, and she'd count it all up and she'd take it to the bank. She did that for 40 years. So here I've written this email to Kevin, and the subject line was out of left field. Hi, Kevin. I'm totally blind. I want to go for a land speed record, and I'd like to see whether you will come on board to help me. So Kevin's gotten home. He's read this email, and he went, so he wrote a reply, and I'm sitting at my computer, right? And he's hit send, and ping, up comes this message. Hi, Ben. I just got your, I'm really interested. I'd like to talk to you about this. Oh, sorry. And I just read it. My phone rings, and it was no number on the phone. No, I didn't recognize the phone number.
Yeah.
So my phone talks to me, right? So I went, oh, yeah, this must be Kevin McGee. So
No way.
I hit the answer button. I went, hello, Kevin. How did you know it was me? He said, I've got one question. And I said, what's that, Kev? Ask anything. He goes, how blind are you? And I said, Kev, black in both eyes.
Yep.
And he went, right, what do you want me to do? So there you go. Now, Kevin McGee is the most focused professional athlete I've ever come across in my life. This guy's ability to focus is insurpassable, and he's really taught me how to focus, concentrate, not get distracted. He also taught me a lot about riding. I mean, I was a pretty shit rider, but you ride with these guys, and these are the best in the world, right?
Yeah.
Radio technician. So I needed radios, but normal UHF radios, you got 40 channels and truckies and all sorts of people talk. That's no good. Yeah. So I learned about radio. So the guy called Paul Simpson, who's a radio technician, owned his own business, and he supplied all the radios to all the racetracks in New South Wales. And Paul owns his own frequency. So I approached Paul. Then I got my brother, of course, right? And then my mum and many other people who I trust implicitly.
Yes.
They are the best at what they do. And if you want to achieve or aspire to achieve excellence, you must surround yourself with the best people.
Absolutely. And actually unpacking trust, emphatic trust. Let's talk about being on the bike, on the salt flats, from 0 all the way up to your world-breaking 266 kilometres per hour, blind. How do you don't just jump on a bike and do that. There's obviously huge build-up, training, preparation, all of this goes in. But let's keep it on trust. How do you trust yourself and also, I guess, Magoo, as you call him, as your probably what sounds like your critical team member? How do you get to this trust and world-breaking record?
Wow. Awesome question again, Alex.
Fully loaded. Sorry, Ben.
Yeah. This is huge. So when it comes to riding the motorcycle, right, I was trained really hard. I was really fit. Did a lot of bike riding. I did a lot of gym work specific to the muscles I needed on the motorcycle.
Mhm.
I steer the bike with my feet, not my hands.
Oh.
So a lot of practice, a lot of talking, quite a few bottles of red wine with Magoo on solving these problems.
Critical, obviously.
That's right, but it was about building a relationship with Magoo. It was getting to know him. You see, because if Kevin's going to send me down the Salt Lake, by the way, we've done a few airport runways and a couple of drag strips and
Amazing.
a few close calls along the way. But you know, Magoo and I had to trust each other implicitly. Magoo had to have confidence in my ability because he's not going to help any blind guy, right?
That's right.
Because it's his reputation on the line. If anything happens, he's the guy that's going to be responsible.
Mm.
So he had to have confidence in me. I had to trust Kevin with my life. So it's about building a quality relationship, spending time with each other. It's getting to know each other. Mm. It's working together. Look, Magoo and I have had a couple of fisticuffs on the Salt even, right? We clashed heads. We're both stubborn, determined,
passionate
individuals.
By the sounds of it, yeah.
You know, but at the end of the day, we're on a mission to achieve a goal, and we're committed to it. So, so when Kevin and I ride the motorbikes, I can tell you now, both of us, we're absolute fear and trust are the two big things, right? Yeah. And I'm as nervous as anything, Alex, before I get on a bike. Well, days beforehand, really nervous. I'm scared. This is super dangerous. If we make a mistake, I'm a dead man.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
Yeah. So, and Magoo's carrying the burden. He's got to ride his bike. He's behind me on another motorcycle, and here he's going to navigate me. And he needs to trust me that whenever he gives me a command, I will execute that command instantaneously.
Yeah.
So we have to mentally prepare. So we get into a lot of mindfulness stuff. I like a quiet place. We have excellent communication amongst our team. Everyone is an equal. There is no boss in our team. We are a team. If someone doesn't feel right, we don't run. Simple as that. We communicate. We have a plan. We go over that plan. We focus. I isolate myself. I try and get myself into a calm and as peaceful place as possible. I'm nearly asleep. I'm breathing. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm focused. I walk out to the bike, hop on that bike, put the visor down, and it's me and Magoo in our own world. And the only thing that's going through my mind is executing the plan.
Okay. And is, sorry, Ben, and is that, I mean, I just can't imagine how easy it would be for fear to creep in at any time. So when you're saying you're just focusing on executing the plan, is that to just keep fear at bay?
Yes. Yep. So this is how I control my emotions, right? Because, you know, what stops us from doing things is an emotional response. Yeah. I can't have fear in my mind. I can't be scared. I can't be nervous. I can't be anxious. I can't allow, and this is natural, I can't allow my body to be influenced by any of those emotional thoughts or negative thoughts whatsoever. So that's why I focus intensely on exactly my job, executing my part of the plan, and all I'm thinking about, and this is really weird, when I sit on the bike, I'm on the start line, I'm looking straight ahead, I've got a blacked out visor, I can't see a thing, and I can see the whole track, 10 Ks on white salt, the track's 30 metres wide, I know where the flag markers are, I know where the cones are, I know where the laser beam timing gear is, and when I ride off down that track, I'm so focused on feeling the bike, I feel every bump, soft patch, hard patch, lumps, bumps, and by the end of the week, I've memorised and memory mapped the whole track in front of me. It's like I can race down there, Alex, by myself without a navigator. It's when you are so focused and on riding the bike and executing. Now, when I slow down at the end of a run and I pop my visor, whoa! And I just get, it's like a wave of adrenaline rush and emotions just come over me. But you can control that through your own mindfulness.
Mm, mm. So what you're saying is visualization is actually like critical for you.
That is one of the methods I use. So visualization, so
Yes.
it's in my mind's eye. So this is about preparation, right?
Yes.
We have a saying in our team, right? Perfect preparation prevents piss poor performance. Right? That's our team. That's our team motto, right?
Yes.
So preparation is everything. I walk up and down that track at night time. I walk across the track. I know where the soft parts are. I know exactly what everything looks like because my brother and Madhu describe all the colours and the shapes, and I feel the flags. I know what they feel like. So when I'm sitting on that start line and I look up, it's like seeing it in my mind's eye. So that's visualization technique. Another one I use is what I call memory mapping.
Yes.
Right? Now, memory mapping is when I walk up and down that and I'm feeling the surface, right? Every time I ride my bike down the track, I'm changing the gears. Madhu goes the 1, 2, so that's every mile. 2 mile mark, 3 mile, and he's going left, right. You might hear that.
I did, yes.
Yeah. And then what happens is each time I do that run, I'm so intensely focused on my task that I feel every little bump and wheel slip and I memorize it. So it's called memory mapping. So visualization technique, I memorize the surface, right? The revs, the gear change. I know exactly where I am on the track at any point. It's nearly like I can ride the motorcycle without. And you know what? It's not like I'm riding in the dark. It's like I'm a fully sighted person. Now, this is really weird, Alex, to believe, but seriously.
I believe you.
It's like I can see. So when people say, now, if you're a blind person, right?
Yes.
And you get up in the middle of the night and you walk, to the bathroom or what have you, and you stub your toe on the thing, and you've got to feel around. That's scary enough, right?
Yeah.
But try and do it at 300 kilometres an hour. It's ultimate. It's the ultimate challenge of achieving excellence. But when you focus and you develop these methods and techniques over time with practice, it's amazing how the human body can adapt. And seriously, to get 8th fastest out of 42 blokes who all want to go fast, that's an amazing achievement. But you know what? I walk around the pits and all the other motorcycle riders, they come up to me and see me as Ben, the motorcycle racer.
Yes.
They don't see me as the poor, unfortunate blind guy that threads beads of weave cane baskets.
No. But and that was because it was a decision that you made, essentially.
Correct.
You didn't see yourself that way anymore. So I guess that permeates, right?
Yeah, it does. And I want to add one more thing in here, Alex.
Go for it.
What's the secret to success? Well, all the things I just said, focus, teamwork.
Yes.
Expert advice, mentors, all of that stuff, having the right team. But the most important thing, it's up to you, and it's got to do with your attitude. So on our journey of life, as there's an old Chinese proverb says, that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So it's taking that first step. But on our journey of life, there are times where you have a high road and a low road, and you've got to stand there and scratch your head and say, well, do I go the high road or the low road? Well, that's when I talk to my mentors. But anyway, so whatever road I choose, I take another step. And then I come across a stumbling block or a stepping stone. The difference is how you perceive that is your attitude. And if you have the right attitude, I don't see stumbling blocks in my life. I see them as a stepping stone. The next question is, how do I solve the problem? And that's the secret.
Take the first step and figure out how to solve the problem and believe that it's solvable. Have
the right attitude. Have the right attitude.
Yeah.
Have the right people around you. All right. Seek advice, ask questions, learn, have the right team, with the right attitude, a positive attitude, And, Alex, I have, during my time, met many other people like myself.
Yes.
Who have been diagnosed with RP and went on the same journey as me, Alex.
Yeah.
And 2 of those guys drank themselves into oblivion.
Mm.
And I've seen the worst side of what blindness can do.
Mm.
But Alex, and what I'm sharing with you is the most amazing life.
It is.
And that was a choice I
Yeah.
made when I was 27. Decision, commitment.
There's a funny saying. My dad's really big on mentors, and one of his mentors always used to say, in a bit of a joking manner, but in a great manner, the impossible we will do right away. Miracles, well, they take a little bit longer.
I love it.
But as if to say, no, we'll figure it out. We can perform the miracle. We're just going to take a little bit longer. We're going to have to do some planning and some preparation, as you say.
Alex, I doubted myself whether I knew I could ride a bike. I didn't know how to do it. I doubted myself. But when I solved that problem in my own mind, and I spoke to my mum and my brother and my sisters and, and the people who are around me and my mentors, they went, all right, Ben, that sounds a bit crazy, but how are you going to do it? And when I explain it, they go, oh, okay then. And then, so, yeah. And I have just lived the most extraordinary life, Alex. And it's really important for me to share my story, right? Because I want to influence positive cultural attitudes about what people with a disability can do. Everyone has challenges in their life, Alex, right? Everybody does.
Right.
Every human being does. But what has been successful for me, which is what I've described to you, and I made a decision. I've shown commitment toward it. I'm a man on a mission that has a purpose in life, and I want to share my story. It's really important to get my story out to the whole world, especially when we're living in, the global strategic issues that we have going on at the moment, and it's easy to become overwhelmed with negative thoughts.
It is.
Because you defeat yourself.
And on that, we have these big audacious goals. You certainly had a big audacious goal. That was the breaking the world record in 2018. So you've done that. You've done it now. And, we sort of have a saying, or it is a saying, he who has no goal has no direction. You've smashed your goal out of the park. And obviously you've got, other goals along the way, like you're talking about, inspiring others, sharing your story. But do you have another big audacious goal that is one of your key drivers today?
Absolutely, Alex, and I am a goal-driven person because that's what works for me. Because that does give me direction, right? And that's part of my mission. So, to achieve the motorcycle land speed record, I didn't go there. Ultimately, the goal wasn't to break the record. That wasn't why I did it.
Okay.
I went there because I wanted to aspire to strive for personal excellence. And I love riding bikes, and I just wanted to race a motorbike. That's why I did it. Now, Magoo always says to me, Ben, don't chase the speed, let it come to you. And you know what? When I broke the record, I didn't even think I went fast enough, and they come and told me the time. Getting the record was a bonus. That was our goal, but it wasn't our motivating factor, all right? So now, as I described when I was in Barbados, sitting under the coconut palm, and I made some decisions. Well, I've made a recent decision a little while ago, Alex, and so I'm now going to challenge the Guinness World Record for the fastest speed for a car driven blindfolded.
Wow.
And we've just signed an amazing film deal with WideNet Productions in New York. And Mike Newman, my mentor from England, who's got 9 land speed records. Well, he's actually got 7 because he doesn't have the car. He doesn't have the bike record he anymore because I've got it. And an American guy called Dan Parker, March last year, broke Mike's car record. Dan drove his Corvette, which he hand-built himself, at 339 kilometres per hour. So in October this year, Alex, the blind speed team are heading to Cape Canaveral to race at the Kennedy Space Centre on the space shuttle landing facility runway, which is 5 kilometres long and 100 metres wide, and the 3 fastest blind guys in the world are going to race to determine who's the fastest blind man in the world.
Wow. Unreal.
So did I ever think that I'd ever go to the Cape Canaveral, where the moon rocket blasted off a few months ago?
Yeah.
Did I ever think in my wildest dreams that I'll be driving a car called the Electroliner, which is built by EV West in California, and this is the world's fastest Tesla-powered. Actually, it looks like a torpedo with an aircraft wing with a tail fin on the back, and basically you step in it and you lay flat on your back.
Wow!
And it's electric powered, and Electroliner has set its class record at 383 kilometres per hour. And they tell me that the car is capable of doing in excess of 450 kilometres per hour.
Yeah.
You ever think, Alex, that I'd be driving an electric-powered car at Cape Canaveral?
Mm. Well, and that's one of my questions too. Like, we're always looking forward, or often we're looking forward, particularly if we are goal-oriented. And sometimes if we're not, we're looking forward. But it's also important for us to actually reflect on the last 5 years, 10 years, and even 20 years, because it gives us some context to what we actually can achieve in time. So I want to ask you look back on the last, let's say 10 and or 20 years, because I imagine there's a lot of difference between the two. You obviously, and you've said this, but you never would have imagined that you would have achieved what you had achieved. It was there, it was there somewhere inside you, but it just hadn't made it up to your brain to imagine it and conceive it. Run us through that. Do you amaze yourself?
I once worked with a boss. He was my boss, but again, one of my mentors, and he escaped from communist Yugoslavia and ran a fence, and they fired machine guns at him, and he immigrated to Australia. Mm-hmm. Right, hardest working bloke I've ever met, and he became a multimillionaire 3 times. He became bankrupt twice, and Peter used to say to me, Ben. I can't do his accent, right? But he'd say, Ben, don't just shoot for the moon. He said, shoot for the stars. Always think big. And he said, if you get halfway there, you're going beyond what you ever thought. So he taught me to dream. And when I was thinking, what was my childhood dream? To race motorcycles at the highest level. I just want to ride bikes. And that took me on my journey. So think big. The other thing is, what stopped me was my lack of self-esteem and lack of confidence. And I thought that, what can a blind man do? I never met blind people before. I didn't think that I ever had the capability of doing stuff. But with technology and with hard work and dedication and all those things, you can go beyond your wildest dreams. So think big.
You're amazing.
Reflecting is really important, because, every time, whether I fail at something or whether I achieve at something, I always reflect, because reflecting is really important. I was thinking, how can I do that better? How can I improve? Where did I make mistakes? So I'm critical on myself, and our team is critical on each other. It's essential, because we need to be held to account. We need to constantly improve. I have a philosophy of lifelong learning. So I'm constantly applying myself, reflecting on the past, looking forward to the future, and thinking, how can I constantly improve? How can I do it better next time? See, and on my journey of life, ultimately, it's not really about me. It's about my legacy, and what can I bring as a member of the community? What can I offer? And I have got one of the greatest gifts of all, and that is to inspire other people.
Nailed it. You nailed that. And I've got one last question for you, because I know we've only got you for limited time, and knowing us, we've gone over. Look at us go. But I mean, you know, I'm not a fan of the words uncertainty and I guess, you know, things of that regard. But I guess in our life, we're all going to face different adversities, and we're going to have to overcome them, you know, whether we think we can or not. So sort of as you're imparting words to us, you know, how can we, in summary, and you've talked about it, but in summary, how can we overcome these adversities, or at least have the mindset to overcome them?
Well, you need to have belief in yourself. You need to have a goal, because the goal gives you direction, and from there you define your mission. You understand your purpose in life. So I went through a lifelong learning to understand my purpose, my mission. I clearly define my goals, and then I don't take no for an answer, right? I do have doubt, and I have all of these normal human feelings, but I use all of those things to motivate me to aspire to achieve excellence. And believe in yourself, shoot for the stars, listen, learn, and surround yourself with a team of people that you trust, and carry on, overcome adversity, pain, suffering, all of those things. It's a part of the journey. But yeah, stay focused and be prepared to take the next step.
Ben, you are an absolute legend. I've enjoyed getting to know you so much. And I think I'm going to leave this and conquer the world this afternoon. So I think I'm ready to conquer the world after our discussion. Thank you so much.
Absolutely my pleasure.
And I look forward to having you back when you've broken another record and or gone just spine-tingling speeds in an electric vehicle later on in the year in the US of A. Thank you. Well,
Alex, I'm a man on a mission. I'm super excited just thinking about October and racing this car, but I'd love to come back and share my experience with you and the custodians and everyone. So thanks, Alex, for the opportunity to have a discussion with you and to be able to share my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.